The timeline of this movie is set in the 18th century. At the beginning of the film, we see a group of hunters who kill animals and trade their fur. Among them, we're introduced to the main character of the movie, Hugh Glass. Hugh Glass is also a member of this hunting group and has come here with his son for the hunting expedition. After the hunt, the group rests for a while, but soon they hear the sound of horses nearby, which puts everyone on alert. Suddenly, they are attacked by a group of Native Americans. Chaos ensues, and the hunters try to fight back, but the natives outnumber them by a large margin, forcing them to flee. The reason behind the attack is that the tribe's chief believes his daughter has been kidnapped, and he suspects the hunting group is responsible. Many of Hugh Glass's companions are killed in the attack, but Glass manages to escape with his son. They reach a lakeside while trying to evade the natives. Some of Hugh's fellow hunters are also with them, and to avoid further ambushes, they start moving along the river. Glass warns that if they keep moving like this, the natives can easily target them from the hilltops. He suggests they take the forest route instead. Everyone agrees with Glass, except one man named John, who insists the river is the only way forward. The group's captain sides with Glass and decides they'll proceed through the forest. When they reach the riverbank, the captain instructs them to hide the animal pelts, as carrying all that load further would be too difficult. He says that if they survive, they'll come back to retrieve them. They bury the pelts and leave the boat behind as a decoy to trick the natives into thinking they've taken the river route. Some in the group oppose abandoning the boat, leading to arguments. Eventually, a few men choose to proceed by boat, but midway, they're ambushed by the natives and killed, proving Glass's warning right. The surviving group members continue their journey on foot through the forest. After walking for hours, they decide to rest. While the others rest, Glass goes out hunting and sees 2 bear cubs. As he prepares to shoot them, he hears something behind him. When he turns around, he sees the mother bear charging at him. The bear viciously attacks and severely injures Glass. She mauls him repeatedly, leaving him paralyzed and barely conscious. To survive, Glass pretends to be dead. The bear finally walks away, but when Glass sees her within range, he shoots. Though hit, the bear doesn't die and attacks him again, this time with even more rage. She tears open his throat and leaves him critically wounded. As she begins to faint due to the gunshot wound, Glass manages to stab her with a knife and kills her. The dead bear collapses on top of Glass, knocking him unconscious. Soon after, the rest of the group finds him and rushes to his aid. They remove the bear from his body and are shocked at the extent of his injuries. There isn't a single part of his body left untouched by the bear. Blood is pouring from his wounds. The captain tends to his injuries, but Glass faints again due to the pain. They carry him along, but soon the terrain becomes too rough, and they realize it will be almost impossible to carry him further. Some suggest leaving him behind, but the captain doesn't want to abandon him, knowing he'll die slowly and painfully. He considers ending Glass's suffering with a bullet, but just then, Glass's son steps in and begs the captain to spare his father. The captain decides to return to camp to get help and offers $70 to anyone willing to stay with Glass until he returns. Glass's son and his friend Bridger volunteer, saying they don't want any money, they'll stay with him. However, John, who dislikes Glass, demands $100 instead of $70. The captain agrees, and the 3 men, Glass's son, Bridger, and John, stay behind with him. John spends the entire day waiting for Glass to die, but despite his horrific wounds, Glass refuses to give up. When food becomes scarce, Glass's son and Bridger go hunting. During this time, John stays with Glass and tells him that he knows Glass is in pain and wants to be free from suffering. As a friend, he offers to help him die, saying he'll choke him to death and no one will ever know it will look like a natural death. He asks Glass to blink if he agrees. Let me know if you want the next part translated too, or if you'd like a cinematic tone version. Here is the full English translation of your provided Hindi passage in one long paragraph. Without breaking the structure or shortening the content, as requested, Glass is unable to speak because the bear had brutally torn through his throat. but he had no intention of accepting John's offer. He deliberately keeps his eyes wide open for a long time, refusing to blink. Eventually, his eyes close involuntarily, and John, misinterpreting this as agreement, starts suffocating him with delight. Just then, Glass's son arrives and kicks John away, begins shouting loudly at John in anger, hoping his voice would attract their other companion. But John, in a fit of rage, pulls out his dagger and kills Glass's son. Glass, though unable to move or speak, watches everything from a distance but is helpless. Before Bridger arrives, John quickly disposes of the body. When Bridger comes, he asks John where Hugh is. John lies and says Hugh hasn't come back yet. Glass tries to communicate the truth, but Bridger doesn't understand him. John grows increasingly frustrated because Glass refuses to die, so he comes up with a new plan. The next morning, John tells Bridger that he saw about 30 to 35 native warriors near the river approaching their location. Fearing for their lives, he says they must flee immediately. Bridger panics and starts packing his things. He then asks again about Hugh, to which John responds that if they want to survive, they must abandon the father and son here. Bridger asks what will happen to Glass, and John says they'll have to dig a grave and bury him. Bridger refuses, but John goes ahead anyway and buries Glass alive. Then John and Bridger leave the site. Sometime later, Glass, gathering his strength, pulls himself out of the shallow grave. He drags himself to the place where his son's body lies and breaks down in grief. He deeply regrets not being able to save his son. At that moment, he decides he will crawl out of this forest no matter what and take revenge on John for killing his son. Meanwhile, Bridger discovers that John had lied to him. There were no native warriors chasing them. Angry and guilt-ridden, Bridger tells John that what they did to Hugh and his son was terribly wrong. We then see Glass beginning his painful journey through the wilderness. Leaving his son's body behind, he starts crawling forward. This is where Glass's real test begins. He drags himself all the way to a lakeside and gathers water. But when he tries to drink it, the water spills from his throat due to the deep wound caused by the bear. Realizing that if his throat doesn't heal, he won't be able to eat or drink anything, he comes up with an idea, using some gunpowder. He lights a fire and seals the wound by burning it, causing the skin on his throat to fuse. The pain is excruciating. Meanwhile, we see that the captain and his men have reached the fort. John and Bridger are also headed in that direction. Glass, still seriously injured, notices some native men near the riverbank. They spot him too. Knowing he can't run, Glass throws himself into the cold river to escape. He barely survives but loses consciousness due to the freezing water. The next morning when he wakes up, he sees that his wounds have worsened and started to rot. Hungry, he catches a fish and eats it raw. That night, he sees a fire burning in the distance. As he moves toward it, he sees a man roasting wild buffalo meat. When the man sees Glass, he prepares to attack. But Glass kneels and gestures that he means no harm. The man named Highcock understands and invites Glass to share the meat with him. The next morning, Highcock asks about Glass's injuries. Glass tells him everything, how he was mauled by a bear and then abandoned by his comrades. Highcock shares his own tragic story of loss. The two set off together on a horse. Meanwhile, John and Bridger reach the fort. John warns Bridger not to tell the captain anything, or they'll both be executed. When they meet the captain, they lie, saying Glass had died and was buried in the woods, and that his son went missing. The captain gives them payment, but Bridger refuses to take the money and walks away. Suspicious of John's story, the captain starts having doubts. Meanwhile, we see Glass unconscious as a snowstorm hits. Highcock shelters him and tends to his wounds during the storm. The next morning, Glass finds Highcock gone.
As he moves forward,
he sees Highcock's body hanging from a tree, clearly murdered. He's confused and doesn't know who killed him. Moving forward, he sees a group of French fur trappers and realizes that the kidnapped daughter of the native chief is with them. It becomes clear that these are the men who abducted her, which led to the earlier attack on the hunting party. As Glass tries to move away, he sees the French leader attempting to rape the girl. Let me know if you'd like the next part translated or turned. Here is your complete passage translated into English in one long paragraph, exactly as requested, preserving the story in detail without shortening. As the French leader is about to take the native girl away, Glass becomes furious and holds the Frenchman at gunpoint from behind. He tells the girl to stay put while he goes to fetch a horse so they can escape. However, the girl is so enraged at the Frenchman that before Glass returns, she cuts off his private parts. The man screams in agony, and hearing this, the other Frenchmen rush toward them. But Glass and the girl manage to escape. The next morning, while Glass is resting, a group of native warriors suddenly attacks. To flee, he mounts his horse and rides away. As he rides, he realizes the path ahead ends at a steep cliff, but he doesn't stop. He leaps off the edge. With his horse, the horse dies from the impact, but Glass survives as he lands on a thick bed of snow that cushions his fall. Although he escapes the natives, another problem arises. A snowstorm is approaching, and he has nothing to wear. The bear hide he used to sleep with had been left behind. With nothing to protect himself and freezing temperatures all around, he uses the dead horse for shelter. He cuts open its belly, removes its innards, and crawls inside to protect himself from the cold. The next morning, once the storm clears, he climbs out and continues his journey. Meanwhile, back at the fort, a Frenchman arrives seeking help. He tells the captain that many of their men died under the snow and some were killed by wolves. This Frenchman has with him a bottle, the same one Bridger had given to Glass when they buried him. The bottle had slipped from Glass's possession while escaping the French trappers. Bridger recognizes it and says, "That's my bottle. I gave it to Glass. How did you get it?" This convinces the captain that Glass might still be alive. He quickly gathers a team and sets out in search of him. Eventually, they find Glass, though not his son. Glass then tells the captain everything, and upon hearing the truth, the captain is filled with rage and orders John's arrest. When the captain returns to the fort to apprehend John, he discovers John has already fled, taking all his money with him. A few days later, the captain visits Glass, and Glass tells him, "John is now my hunt. He killed my son and destroyed my entire world. No one can save him now." The captain agrees and supports Glass, and the two of them head into the forest together. When they reach the woods, the captain tells Glass that the forest is vast, so they must split up to search for John. They separate and begin their hunt. Soon after, the captain spots John, but before he can react, John shoots him. Hearing the gunshot, Glass rushes to the captain's location, but finds him dead, and John has fled once again. Glass then places the captain's body on a horse and rides away. As he continues, John spots Glass and shoots him. When John approaches the fallen man, he discovers it isn't Glass. It's the captain. Glass had anticipated John's ambush, so when he placed the captain on the horse earlier, he propped him upright, using a wooden stick behind his back, and lay down himself on another horse, pretending to be dead. As soon as John turned his back, Glass shot at him, but John narrowly escapes and runs. Glass, unwilling to let the opportunity slip away, chases after him. They both reach the riverbank, where an intense fight breaks out between them. John screams, "Kill me if you must, but killing me won't bring your son back." In response, Glass plunges a dagger into John's stomach and says, "Revenge is not in our hands, it's in God's." Then he pushes John into the river. After floating downstream a bit, John manages to climb out, but the same native tribe catches him and kills him. After killing John, the natives approach Glass. He thinks they're going to kill him too, but they silently walk past. Glass then sees the native girl he had rescued earlier among them, and realizes they spared him because of her. With that, the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more such stories.